For this step, we are going to need parts D11, D51, D48, and D12. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the bench. We are finished with step 2 and starting step 3. So this step requires a total of 8 pieces, which are these 2 valve covers, which I've already painted from a previous step because I had the colors all mixed up. So all I need to do now is pick out the detail in the bolts and do an overall wash to the pieces, and those will be ready to glue on. And I also have, I believe, what is the ignition packs, which are these individual little pieces here, which 4 of them are D51 and 2 of them are D48. So I'm gonna go ahead and get those parts all cut up and ready for paint. All right, got the pieces all cut out and mounted on a board, so that way it's easier to airbrush. We got the 2 pieces of D48 and the 4 pieces of D51, and the instructions are calling for them to be LP5, which is a semi-gloss black. So I'm gonna go ahead and shoot those in the airbrush and be back in a little bit. All right, we have all of our parts painted and ready to be glued up. We have 4 of the D51s and we have 2 of the D48s. So I think I'm gonna put the D48s on first, which you can tell right here. There's like a pipe or a plug that's pointing upwards. But if you take that part and turn it over, you can see at the bottom of it, it has like a little square guide, which if you look here on this part, there's also a square guide right in there. So that's where the part's gonna go. So you just kind of line up that underneath notch with the notch on the part. Dab a little glue in there. And then we're just gonna take that part, drop it right in there, and it just fits nice and snug. So we're gonna do that with the other one as well. Too much glue. Lines up, goes right inside there. Now, you'll notice, well, I'll try to pick one up. On the parts that are labeled D51, you'll notice on one end of them, there is kind of like a bolt or a raised portion, and those go in the opposite direction of this little piece here. So we have to align them so that bolt is basically, and Tamiya's made it where it'll only fit one way anyway. So because there's a little pin on each one of these, so it fits right down on there. So I'm just gonna put a little glue on both of those. And I'm gonna grab this one, set it on. I'm gonna grab this one, just touch it, push it. And that one's done. pretty much if you look at the pegs when you're gluing them down, they won't fit if you're gluing them wrong. So don't worry about it. If they don't fit, that means you're doing it wrong. So those two parts are now done and ready for some detail painting. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna glue them to the actual engine. So that way I can just hold the whole engine while I detail it instead of holding and messing up the parts individually. So I'm gonna make sure I've got the right part. This piece here is D11, and this piece here is D12. So, all right, if you look on the directions, D11 goes on the top of the engine where the DUCATI name is showing. So I'm just going to glue that one on. So that one is going to go on this side. And again, if you notice, under these parts, you'll see a longer notch and a shorter notch. And if you look on the head of this engine, you've got a longer slot and a narrow slot. So just line those both up and they'll fit right in. That piece is on. So same thing for the other side. You've got your two notches, long, narrow, which will tell you exactly how the other one goes on. Press it on, and now you have part of your engine done. Now all we need to do is detail the top parts that we just built, and step 3 will be done. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my paints, and we'll go over that. All right, back for some minor detail painting of the bolt heads. I'm just gonna grab a little bit more of my Maltif silver refill, chrome silver, and I'm just going to grab some on my brush, and I will get a little bit of detail stuff done real quick. So I'm just going to touch. The directions call for these to be chrome silver. So I'm just gonna go ahead and touch the head of these bolts. Real careful. All right, that takes care of the chrome silver parts. So sometimes when you paint like the directions, the directions tell you that this entire piece right here is supposed to be LP5, but there's some little details on there that if I really want to, which I kind of do, I'm gonna go grab a NATO black, which is kind of a gray black, and I'm gonna touch these little, I don't think they're bolt heads, but these just little risers here and there, and just pick those off at a different color so maybe it'll help those stand out. If I was heavily detailing this and using aftermarket stuff with tubing and so on, I would just let that detail separate from the different materials being used. But I'm building this box stock, so I have to use as much paint to help me make details, if that makes sense. So let me go grab some paint. Okay, on one side I did it. Don't know if you can really tell. I put a little bit of NATO black just on the parts that I thought would be different. And I'm not seeing it pop out as much, but it kind of is different than that one. So what I'm going to try to do is maybe do a little bit of dry brushing to kind of bring out the edges a little bit. So I've got a little bit of, what is it? It is unbleached titanium white. And it's an oil paint. And so I just get a stiff brush and I put just a tiny bit on the brush. So there's some on the brush itself. I put way too much in there. Then I'm going to get a paper towel and I'm going to take most of it off. Okay, so now with that titanium or unbleached titanium on my brush, I'm going to come in here and just ever so slightly brush against the edges. I'm hardly even pressing at all. I'm just trying to catch the edges, and that'll help all that black area have a little bit more definition. Now it's hard to see. And you're just barely brushing across it. You're not really putting any pressure down. You're just letting the brush hit those little edges. And so you get kind of that effect, which is different than that effect that it hasn't been done on yet. So it just helps it a little bit. So I'm going to do the other part. And again, we're just barely touching the surface. And it's oil paint, so if you really make a mistake, oil paint takes a while to dry, so you could technically come in there and remove some of it if you had to. Like I've got a little bit too much right on this section right here, so I'm going to come in and remove that. I'll probably end up removing it from somewhere else. But if I really wanted to, I could also come back and just hit that again with black paint. So you really can't make a mistake that you can't fix, really. Or you just tell people, yeah, that's what I intended for that to be. So that is step 3 finished. So guys and gals, I will get step 4 ready and we'll see you for the next chapter. Well, next step. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a good one.